is ready to go. On the Fan, New York Sports Radio. Mike's on, Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM, WFAN.
From the studios of WFAN, this is Mike's on, Francesa on the Fan on this busy Monday, the 11th day of December, as we begin the last week for me of a 30-year career. So it started yesterday with a wild scene at Mulcahy's, which I thank everybody for. We got a lot to get to. I'll get to the Mulcahy stuff later because I don't want to start the show with it because we have a lot going on, and that is the Stanton press conference at 2. It was an ugly, terrible, disappointing football day yesterday for the locals. The Jets played like you thought they would all year in Denver as that defense finally showed a breath. The Giants, just more of the same drop balls and ineffective play and just some miserable play in the fourth quarter on both sides of the ball. So more of the same as the Cowboys came in and won that game. And now the last 3 games are just about playing out the string and getting to next year and moving up in the draft order as the weeks go on. And, of course, Giancarlo Stanton, the press conference at 2 o'clock. We'll have Eli today, and this may or may not be Eli's last appearance. That's up to Eli. But we have Eli at 5, and we will have the Stanton press conference at 4. Sweeney's at the winter meetings. We have Mark DeRosa wants to come on, so we'll talk with him about it. And here's the bottom line, okay? I haven't heard a lot of the stations since it happened on Saturday. But I think I can pretty much garner what the sentiment will be. And my opinion is probably a little different than most. And here it is. Number one, the Yankees didn't go looking for this, as we know. And frankly, it was a deal they couldn't pass up. And nobody in their right mind would expect them to pass up this kind of deal because they virtually got him for nothing, which I totally agree with. I mean, they have to pay him, but they personally got him with nothing. And it does put them in some restricted area financially in terms of what to do with, Ellsbury, what to do with Gardner, whether or not they can afford pitches. Can they still in any way stay under the tax, which is something they have talked about and preached that they would do at any cost. But all that as it may, to get him for what they paid for him, it was so ridiculously inexpensive in terms of a trade that obviously it was one you couldn't pass up. But while in some areas it is absolutely automatic, it will increase ticket sales. It will give them a buzz. It will increase TV, radio ratings. All true. Do not dispute that. I mean, that when you bring those guys like that in, that happens. When they brought A-Rod to the team, whether you liked the move or didn't like the move in terms of what it did to the team, it exploded the team in terms of attendance, in terms of ratings, stuff like that. Absolutely exploded the team. The team drew $4 million for the first time ever. I mean, so there's no question he will, from that standpoint, be good for business. And in the game of baseball, from a box office standpoint, stars plus stars equal improved attendance and buzz. There's no arguing that. Now, on the field, going forward, is it just that every part of this is positive? I don't think so. That's where you can get into it a little bit. Not because they have too much right-handed power, because can you ever have too much power? But how does he, now coming in to a team that was going to grow in one way, is now going to grow completely differently because he comes in and he is going to have an immediate impact. He's going to have an immediate impact on the young stars he touches. The fact there is such a great disparity between what they make and what he makes will be an issue. Don't say it won't. It will. It will become one. There's just no way around it. It's human nature, especially when it's an incredibly huge amount of money. I mean, this is a guy who who they owe $295 million. That's right, $295 million. So from that standpoint, and then how he goes, I mean, remember, Judge was on his way to being the leader and the face of this team. That changes now with Stanton. You know, Stanton's more established. Stan's going to consider himself the leader of this team. I mean, wouldn't he? Wouldn't you if you were coming here with his credentials? You would too. Plus, he's a guy who comes from a very small market to a big market where he's not been known to be that easy to deal with. That's not that big a problem. It can be a little one. But more than anything else, how it affects them, how it affects Judge, who plays where in the outfield, how it affects the outfield configuration, how it affects how they deal with the pitching, how much money can they actually afford, especially if they are in any way economically conscious this year, or do they just blow out the tax and not worry about it? Because they still need to go out and improve their pitching. They still need to go out and improve their starting pitching, and it's very expensive to do that. And now the idea of buying a starting pitcher. Remember, the Yankees didn't go near any big pitchers last year at the end of the year. And obviously a big pitcher completely changed the fortunes of the postseason. They didn't even consider going after him because they were not going to fool at all with their salary situation. That was something that was in granite. Does it remain in granite, or is it out the window? Well, I'll have to wait and hear and see what the thought process is. But if they are going to remain in a position to get under it, which my understanding is they still can, with certain maneuvers, they still can, because of what's been lost and what can be lost between now and the start of the season, they still can. But it will mean they're not going to be able to go out and chase a lot of pitching if they are going to get under the tax, which they had a plan which would impact them dramatically going forward in the years to come to restart the tax and restart the thermostat, which is something that they planned very heavily to do years ago, blew it away, and now at the last moment may have blown it away again. We don't know that yet. They haven't made that point. They've made the point that they might not. But again, that's going to affect them in terms of how they go forward. So there is impact in terms of face of the franchise, in terms how they grow, because they'll grow differently now. They brought you're going to accelerate Gleyber Torres. You're also going to add another piece, and a very prominent piece, to a lineup that was going to grow a certain way with Judge and Sanchez and Bird and the young sluggers. And the young core was going to grow one way. Now adding this kind of star to the proceedings makes it a very different team, very different feel, both in terms of the field and the clubhouse. So to say that there are no pitfalls or no bad steps that can be hit here, I don't think that's true. But I don't think anybody could argue that they could look away from what is an absolute, deal that is very hard. Basically, they were the last resort for Jeter. I think he looked pretty much everywhere he could. Either it was turned down by Stanton or the team couldn't get it done. I don't think he really wanted to send them to the Yankees, but he always knew that they were there at the last moment. But he made them a deal they couldn't refuse, and they didn't. That's really what it comes down to. So from all the business standpoints, it's a home run. I mean, there's not even an argument there. No one could argue that. On the field, I think it's a little more complicated than it being just automatic. And how it affects them economically, we have to watch and see how that proceeds. What happens to Gardner? What happens to center field? What happens to the outfield rotation? They wanted to get rid of Ellsbury. They didn't. They have to. No one's going to take that contract. How much did they pay it off? What happens there? What can they give away to get rid of that contract? That all is stuff we have to watch unfold. But first things first, today, for you Yankee fans who just like more and more and more, well, you got more. You got more and more, and you got a big, you took a guy with a lineup with intense power and put the biggest power hitter in the sport on top of that. So if you like the home run, you found the right team. Back after this.